Okay, so this paper is a joint work with a lot of other people, Chris, Sam, Malish, Aaron, and Rakesh. It is one of a series of papers that we are trying to say about fairness, discrimination, and algorithms, especially from the econ perspective. So let's get started. So recently, there has been a lot of interest in the topic of fair use algorithms. So for example, there's a predictive policing algorithm. Predictive policing algorithm predicts which area or person is likely to commit a crime and therefore should be searched. A part of the reason why the police is using this algorithm is to incentivize people to not to commit a crime and therefore to reduce the crime rate. And there's a debate whether the police is using the algorithm in a fair way across the races. There are a lot of different dimensions of the discussions about like what the fairness means and how to implement this. But the one specific dimension that I want to look at today is whether the policies are using the algorithm based on his taste for discrimination, as in contrast to statistical discrimination. For another example, we can think about a bonus payment. Firms use algorithms to figure out who has the highest productivity. The firms then design an incentive plan that maps the estimated productivity to compensations, say whether to give a bonus or not. The design of the incentive plan then affects on the workers' incentive to work. And there are questions about whether the firms are paying men more than women, and if so, whether that is because the firms are unfairly discriminating women, which is the taste-based discrimination. So what are common and what I think to be important in these stories is that there's a principal who has a signal structure that is informative about the agent's behavior. The agent's behaviors are endogenously determined. The principal has a commitment power over how to use the information. So in case of police has a manual that specifies what actions to take once the algorithm spits out certain information. In case of the firms, incentive plans are often a publicly known formula or are part of the contracts, and which gives a commitment power to the principals. And lastly, the principal may have a taste for discrimination. Given this environment that we think to be representing the situation, the main question that we want to ask today is, how can it detect the taste-based discrimination? And if you ask this question to any empirist walking in the street, I would say like 90%, but I guess I shouldn't. Many empirists will answer or say that, oh, well, you should be looking at the marginal outcome test. This is the gold standard in the literature for detecting the taste-based discrimination. And in the police search context, what this means is that is to compare the risk levels of the individuals who are from different groups, but the police is only indifferent between searching and not searching. We're gonna be calling these individuals whom the police is indifferent as the marginal types. And the idea is that if the marginal types from the minority group has way lower risk level than the marginal type from the major group, then this is evidence of the police discriminating minorities against the majorities based on the taste. Because for the police to be only indifferent between arresting or searching and not searching, the minorities have to have a significantly lower risk level for him to be classified as the marginal type. So this idea was first proposed by Becker, and then there are beautiful series of papers that establishes the conditions under which this intuition holds. Hall's paper is one of the very recent ones that basically says when the behaviors are exogenous, in the sense that whether to commit a crime or not, for example, is independent of how the principal uses his algorithm, then the marginal outcome test is going to be valid. In that paper, they specifically advocate their approach as a model-free approach, meaning that you only need to care about the statistical conditions on the data under which the marginal outcome test is going to be valid. And the condition they say essentially is to say that the behaviors are exogenously given. And what they also try to say is that you don't really need models anymore to have a valid estimation for the taste-based discrimination. And this approach has been a recent trend in this literature. There are a lot of applications, especially recent ones, that tries to apply this model-free approach in terms of marginal outcome test to different environments so that they're going to be able to test whether there's a taste-based discrimination or not. So this is really the thing that the people are looking at when they want to estimate the taste-based discrimination. And what our paper is trying to say in today's talk is that we find that our environment, in our environment, the marginal outcome test is going to be invalid. And we find that this is really driven by two factors in our model. One is that the agent's behaviors are endogenous. And the other is that the principal has a commitment power. And this is really a beautiful set of conditions because each of the conditions, the opposites of each of the conditions is what is assumed in the previous literature. So in Hall's paper, the result there is that if the agent's behaviors are exogenous, then the marginal outcome test is valid. In KPT's paper or Anwar and Fang's paper, what they do is that if the police does not have any commitment power, then the marginal outcome test is going to be valid. So under each of the violation of these conditions, we have marginal outcomes to be valid. But once you deviate away from those conditions at the same time, which sounds possibly innocuous, to be honest, from the empirical perspective, now that you will not have the marginal outcome test to be valid anymore, which we think to be like very exciting, which we think to be a very exciting result. And we also propose alternative statistical tests that can identify whether there is a taste-based discrimination or not. So yeah, I'm getting a bit nervous. Okay, let's go to the model. So in our model, there's two players. One is a citizen. There is the police. Citizen represents the agent, and the police is the principal. Citizen is coming from one of two groups, A or W. A is for minority, W is for the majority. The citizen is able to choose from one of the two actions, either to commit a crime or to remain innocent, each represented by C and I. Each action is going to lead to an energy signal S that is generated according to some PDFs that we denote by FGC and FGI. So the signal structure that the principal is going to face or the police is going to face may depend on the group identity of the citizen and the action that is taken by the citizen. We assume that these signal structures satisfy the mountain likelihood ratio property, which means that the high signal really indicates the higher likelihood of the person having committed a crime instead of not having committed a crime. And before observing these informations, the signal produced by the algorithm and the group identity of the citizen, the police is going to choose a search strategy and is going to commit to that, which we denote by beta G. So beta G is the mapping from the signals to the probability of searching the person. Given the policy strategy beta G, the citizen is going to commit a crime if and only if the benefit of committing a crime is larger than the benefit of not committing a crime. Rho is the payoff crime. Kappa is the cost of getting searched. Omega is the payoff of not committing a crime. And for each of the actions, we're going to be defining the probability of getting searched, conditioning on the action and the group identity, which is given as this. So the left-hand side of this inequality is saying that if you as a citizen has committed a crime, then you are going to be getting rho for sure. But then with this probability, you are going to be searched. In which case you're going to be paying the cost kappa. On the right-hand side, the similar interpretation is there. If you're not committing a crime, then you are going to be getting omega, but then you are going to be searched with this probability, under which case you will be paying the kappa. We assume that the citizen knows his own payoff structure, so the citizen knows the rho, kappa, omega, but the police does not. If you rearrange the inequality that we had before, then and collect all the parameters that the citizen personally knows, then we have this expression. So we're going to be calling the left-hand side of this thing, this ratio, as the marginal benefit of committing a crime. The right-hand side is what we call by disincentive for committing a crime, and we denote by delta. So the higher the delta is, the higher the probability that you're going to be searched because you take the because you commit a crime instead of not committing a crime. And since you as a citizen don't want to be searched, higher the delta, the more reason there is for you to not to commit a crime. We're going to be denoting the complementary CDF of the marginal benefit as H of G, so that the crime rate of group G, or the probability of committing a crime for group G, given the policy's policy, is going to be given by HG delta G. Lastly, we're going to be specifying the policy's preference. Police is going to be getting a payoff of 1 whenever he searches a criminal, and 0 otherwise. So that means whenever the police searches a citizen and it turns out that the citizen is a criminal instead of being an innocent person, then the police is going to be getting a payoff of 1. Otherwise, he's going to be getting a payoff of 0. Whenever he searches a person, the police is going to bear a cost of TG, which is a fraction of it says host muted me. Where was I? So yeah, the police has a cost of TG, which is a fraction of the payoff that he gets by successfully searching the criminal. And we assume that the police is going to maximize the total number of convictions, that is the total number of successful searches minus the search cost. So the payoff is going to be written in this way. The integrand here is that if you're searching the citizen, then with this probability, the police is going to be finding the criminal, in which case the police is going to be getting a payoff of 1. With the remaining probability, the police is not going to be finding a criminal. That is, the police is going to find that the citizen is actually innocent, in which case the police is going to be getting a 0 payoff. And then no matter whether the citizen is a criminal or not, the police has to pay a search cost, which is TG. So this is a standard payoff function in the literature, except that the crime rate H of G delta G is going to be endogenous. Now that we have specified the environment, we're going to be describing the optimal strategy of the police, which can be analyzed in a pretty intuitive way. So the optimal strategy is going to take a threshold strategy, meaning that there is going to be a threshold SG star, such that the police is going to arrest or the search if only if the signal is above this threshold. In setting the optimal threshold, the trade-off that the police is going to face is the net benefit effect and the disincentive effect. The net benefit effect is the police's preference to search only when the net benefit of searching, which is given by this, is high enough. On the other hand, the disincentive effect is the police's preference to set a search policy that provides appropriate incentive for the citizen and hence the appropriate level of the crime rate. And the optimal way to resolve these two different forces is going to be given by the first order condition. And in terms of the first order condition, the first expression is the net benefit effect. This is the part of, so this is a change in the payoff as you change the threshold while holding the disincentive part fixed. So the delta is given fixed, and hence the crime rate is given fixed. What is the change in the payoff by changing the threshold and by changing the classification strategy a little bit. The second part is about the disincentive effect. So this is a change in the policy's payoff by changing the threshold, and which then changes the disincentive that the citizen is going to have, and therefore the crime rate. And now that we have, in a very simple way, characterized the optimal behavior of the police, the primary question that we want to ask is, does the marginal outcome test reveal the taste-based discrimination? And the marginal outcome test, again, is to compare the risk levels of the individuals who are from different groups, but the police is indifferent between searching and not searching, which we call by the marginal types. Formally, we say the marginal outcome test is valid if the difference in the risk levels of the marginal types implies the taste-based discrimination. That is, the search cost parameter is different across the groups. We say the test is invalid if this is not the case. And the first result that we have is that as long if the groups are different in the sense that at least one of the primitives that characterizes the group, the distribution of the marginal benefits and the signal structures, at least one of them is different across the groups, the marginal outcome test is going to be invalid. And the simplest way to see this is coming from the observation that the marginal outcome test is valid if and only if the police only cares about the net benefit effect. And if the police only cares about the net benefit effect, the first order condition is going to imply this specific equality. And the right-hand side, this expression is in fact the conditional probability of the person having committed a crime where the person is the marginal type. So this taste-based parameter, or this search cost parameter, is exactly identical to the risk level of the marginal type at the optimal point if the police only cares about the net benefit effect. And the police only cares about the net benefit effect if he does not take the impact of his own policy on the agent's endogenous behavior into account. However, generally, in our environment, the police will care about how his strategy is going to impact on the agent's incentive to commit a crime, and hence how the distribution of the criminals are going to be changed. And to that extent, the marginal outcome test is going to fail. So in other words, the marginal outcome test is going to be invalid because the principal cares about the distribution of consequences that his strategy is going to bring to the agents. To better understand what is going on here, we are going to be doing two different exercises. The first exercise is what happens to the optimal strategy if the principal believes that the agent's behaviors are given exogenously. In that case, it is the same as if the delta is given fixed, and therefore the h of delta, which is the crime rate, is given exogenously. In that case, the police does not care about the disincentive effect, because all the disincentive effect is telling you is how the change in the police's strategy is going to change the incentive of the agents to commit a crime, and therefore how the crime rate is going to be changed. But this crime rate and the incentive of the agents are assumed to be fixed in this exercise, meaning that the police is going to only care about the net benefit effect. And that means the police is going to search if and only if the marginal benefit of searching is larger than the marginal cost. That is, if only if this inequality holds. And for the marginal type that we denote by SGX, this is going to be equalized. So the risk level of the marginal type is going to be exactly match the taste space parameter, meaning that the differences in the risk level of the marginal types is going to reveal the differences in the taste space parameters, meaning that the policy is going to be, exercising the taste space discrimination. So when the environment is such that the agent's behaviors are exogenous, the marginal outcome test is going to be valid. And this is actually a special case of the Hall's paper, where he assumes in the first place the behaviors are exogenous. On the other hand, let's now assume that the principal is going to the principal understands that his strategy is going to change the distributions, but does not have a commitment power. Then the police is going to act optimally after observing each of the signal. And because the police is restricted to act optimally after observing each of the signal, he will fail to internalize the effect of his decisions on the incentive of the agent, and therefore on the crime rate. So under the optimal path, the police is going to act as if he only cares about the net benefit effect. And that again means that the police is going to search if only if the marginal benefit of searching is larger than the marginal cost, which means then for the marginal type, the average risk level for the marginal type is going to match the taste parameter, which then makes the marginal outcome test to be valid. And this again goes back to the old papers, KPT and R and Fang's paper, where they obtained the marginal outcome test to be valid without as long as the police does not have any commitment power. So we have this really beautiful characterization about when the marginal outcome test is valid and invalid. So from the previous literature, we know that if the behaviors are exogenous, or if the principal does not have a commitment power, the marginal outcome test is going to be valid. But as soon as you deviate away from both of these assumptions, which sounds like pretty innocuous, you will have the marginal outcome test be invalid. And the reason is precisely because the principal takes the impact of his strategy. Like the principal understands that his choice of strategy is going to change the behaviors of the citizens. And because he has a commitment power, he will internalize this effect completely. So the takeaway from this whole exercise is that this is a kind of warning against the model-free approach, which has been the trend in the literature. So you really have to think about what is the game that is played behind the data. So the model-free approach in the marginal outcome test should be taken with a grain of salt, because the only deviation that we have made here, which is to make sure that the agent's behaviors are endogenous and the principal has commitment power, and those assumptions sound pretty innocuous enough when you're actually dealing with the data, but then these deviations make the marginal outcome test to fail. So you always need to have a model in your mind, and actually you have to have the model and theory section as a split part of your paper when you want to apply the marginal outcome test. At least that's what we're trying to say. And we provide a characterization of when the marginal outcome test is valid and invalid, which is given by whether the agent's behaviors are endogenous and whether the principal has a commitment power or not. The next question is there any then other statistics that will identify the taste-based discrimination? And the answer is yes. So we propose two different statistics, which are essentially the same. So this theorem is saying that there's no taste-based discrimination if only if this ratio is identical across the groups, then again, if and only if this third ratio is identical across the groups. The first one is the derivative of the probability of having a successful search, where the denominator is the derivative of the probability of having a the aggregate search instead of just successful search. This term is the same as the above. So this is the derivative of the probability of having a successful search. Denominator is different. This is a derivative of the probability of having a successful search. Oh, sorry, unsuccessful search. So you search the citizen and then find that the citizen is actually innocent. The derivation is straightforward from the first order condition. And what I want to argue is that these estimate or these these statistics are very easily estimatable. So first of all, the probability of having a successful search or just aggregate search or unsuccessful search, sorry, this should be search and innocent, the unsuccessful search, these are so basic statistics that you're going to be getting in any data, to be honest, that you want to study for the discrimination issues. And only tricky part is that you have to study how these statistics are going to be changed as you vary the threshold SG star a little bit. But this can be easily overcome because you're going to be able to, the idea is that you're going to be able to do some kind of experimentation or quasi-natural experimentation with respect to the threshold and quantify the changes in these statistics, the conviction rate, the search rate, and the false negatives, which is the probability of having a failed search.
You have 5 minutes.
Sure, thanks. And a really nice feature about this test is that you do not, this test does not require any knowledge about what might be very difficult to estimate. So you don't need to know anything about the signal structure that the principal has, and you don't need to know about anything about the exact threshold that the principal is choosing. All you need to do is to observe how these quantities change as you change the threshold. So that's pretty much it. So this is a very empirical oriented theory paper. We characterize when the marginal outcome test, which is a test that is so extensively used in the empirical literature, is valid and invalid. More specifically, we make it clear that this is really depending on whether the agent's behaviors are endogenous or not, and the principal has a commitment power or not. And the takeaway, especially for the empirists, is that the game, you have to really think about what is the game behind the data that is generating this data that you're seeing. And we propose the alternative way to test, which we think to be pretty easily estimatable once you have a reasonable data and the setup to work with.